Well, this year's federal budget is no different to any other. There are winners and there are losers. It's the same with every budget. For me, there were some good points in it, but overall, from a drought relief viewpoint, it was abysmal. I really expected much more from a government than this wishy-washy drought relief package they have put together that is actually quite stultifying when you examine it. Sure, there's some good points in that drought relief package, but overall it falls far short of solving the problem. I was gobsmacked when they talked about assisting farmers to get drought prepared. Now, call me old-fashioned, but just how does that work when you have farmers in Western New South Wales and Western Queensland in the grip of a 3-year drought? What are they supposed to do? Forget about the one they're in and prepare for the next one. Farmers have been screaming for assistance for some time, and after 3 years you would have thought even the androids in Canberra would have got the message. I'm sure even by now Peter Credlin would have told Tony Abbott about it. Much hoo-ha was made of the recently announced drought relief package that Abbott and Truss went to Longreach to tell everyone about, and the $250 million in concessional loans available to farmers in drought-affected areas. Even today, the Nats leader Warren Truss was on his feet in the Parliament boasting about the Nats being the biggest representative of rural and regional Australians, which in itself may be a major problem, and the great outcomes for the bush that are in the budget. The Assistant Treasurer Josh Frydenberg seems to be at a loss to understand the concessional loan restrictions and just how many farmers are ineligible. On Rich Owen Jones on Sky News last night, he said farmers could use the loans to pay down debt and buy feed for cattle. If you listen to him, he had an air of job done about his comments. Jones rightfully took him to task when he said the drought-affected farmers do not want more debt piled on them, they want assistance. They are already overburdened with debt. The Manuel look from Faulty Towers suddenly washed over Frydenberg's style. I'm actually staggered that he didn't mutter, "Care?" I saw nothing in the budget where the federal government was preparing itself for drought. They obviously think after talking to Maurice Newman that the climate change and El Nino are hoaxes, and this is the last drought we will ever experience in some part of Australia. There is obviously some logic in Canberra that because a great percentage of rural and regional Australia is doing well, that the drought-affected areas will suddenly join the gravy train with the next 3 drops of rain. There are some things that are obviously just too remote from Canberra for these people to get a grip on, like farmers already being in debt to the hilt and having already spent their cash reserves feeding stock and in many cases have borrowed to do so. Many are now consigned to selling off their breeding stock and machinery just to stay put. Many of them are facing the prospect of having no breeding stock left when the drought breaks. I know, I get it. The right wing of the Liberal Party is against cash handouts, and they are the very people that are keeping the PM in his job. Even the Treasurer, in his speech to the Press Club yesterday, said this government no longer writes out cheques for failing businesses. Okay, so what's the solution? As they obviously don't have one, and neither will the opposition. I'm not counting on Bill Shorten to be banging the ag drum in his budget reply tonight. Rather a series of slogans and terms like unfair, waters, attacking the most vulnerable, taking from the poor, etc. I just wish the word fair could be dropped from the political vernacular, as the world is not fair, and therefore budgets cannot be fair to everyone, or everyone would be a winner, and the world just isn't like that. Budgets are about national good, and this is where the budget has failed drought-affected farmers. I see on the Land Online news site today good points that everyone is picking on the good points. The NFF, former NFF executive and now Member of Parliament Andrew Broad, was also singing the budget's praises. As I said earlier, there are some good points in the budget for rural and regional Australia, but they appertain to the farmers who are in a good position and not affected by the current drought. As far as farmers in a drought position are concerned, there is bugger all there for them. I've repeatedly said that a national rural disaster initiative has to be put in place by the federal government, run by the federal government and contributed to by all the states. Clearly the overlapping of responsibilities does not work, and what is worse, it allows them to play politics with a very serious issue, particularly between state and federal governments of different political stripes. And it cannot be run by the bureaucracy. They have proven time and time again to be complete dills when it comes to drought, fire, flood and plague issues in rural and regional Australia. It has to be run locally, in the area affected, not by some cumbersome committee of ex-pollies that would not know the proverbial from clay unless they put it in their mouth. It should be run by local shire presidents, by local farmers' representatives and by people who understand the issues on the ground. I couldn't care less whether you vote Coalition or Labor. Graham Richardson actually got it right some weeks back when he said in relation to drought relief, no matter who is in power, they just never get it right. It's now up to farmers to take the cudgel up to governments to rectify this. Yes, that means even getting farmers from non-drought affected areas on side to pressure for funding to be made available promptly in a less cumbersome and restrictive manner when a disaster strikes an area of rural and regional Australia. Long term, it is in all their interests as well to support the farmers currently devastated by drought. It is farcical that a major industry in this country can be left to bounce off walls at a time when it is not of their own making. No rain is not a bad business practice. It is an unavoidable consequence of severe drought. So the extreme right of the Liberal Party can forget that cliche when the issue of support for farmers in drought areas is put forward. I think it is somewhat laughable for the government to be talking about farmers being prepared for drought when the least drought prepared group in this country is the Parliament itself.